Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. Welcome to the 2021 season for the FIA Manufacturer Series over on Gran Turismo Sport. This guide will be covering round 1, which is going to be taking place at Catalunya GP with the Group 3 cars. And before we get started with the first thing, which is the lap guide, let's find out which manufacturer I signed up with. Yep, I'm still with Dodge. These are pretty much the cars that I am the most used to, and I don't think anyone was surprised by this choice. But anyways, let's go ahead and go on over to the lap guide, which is what you're going to be seeing right now. And as we're about to start our best lap in a moment, I'm trying something out where I'm recording the live version instead of the replay version. So let me know what you guys think about this. But anyways, as we start our lap guide, I have the miles per hour and the kilometers per hour on the bottom of the screen. Bring yourself towards the left side of the track. Look for this little light that is on the left, as that is your first braking point. Brake hard for a short while, and as you turn in, slowly ease off of the brakes. You can cruise for a moment, so no braking nor throttle, to help the car rotate around the turn a bit more, and then do a little throttle control as you exit the chicane. Then left off of throttle as you make this right turn, and look for this orange barrier on the other side of the track, as that is your cue to start to fully accelerate. Slowly bring yourself towards the left side of the track, and your next braking point is before you pass the white line before the bridge. Once again, brake hard for a short while, slowly ease off of the brakes. Just try to stick to the right side of the track as much as you can, and then fully accelerate. Now bring yourself to the right, brake before the wall on the left ends, brake hard for a short while, nice and easy off of the brakes. Get the car pointing towards the next section of the track before you start to fully accelerate, and then bring yourself towards the right side of the track as you want to brake before the curb on the right starts. Brake hard for a short moment. Make sure you get onto the red and white curves, as that will help your car rotate around that turn. Then as the curb on the left ends, you want to start to turn in and use just a little bit of braking to fine tune the car, hit the apex, hit the curbs, and then slowly accelerate. Now next up, you want to look for the digital flag that is on the right, as you want to brake before you pass it. Brake hard for a short while, slowly ease off of the brakes, definitely take advantage of the apex, and carefully accelerate. Take advantage of those curves we just went through, and just as you start to make this right turn, you want to use a little bit of braking. Bring yourself towards the right side of the track, carefully accelerate, and then brake before the curb on the left ends, before the cone for those using the cone assist. Brake hard for a short moment. Bring yourself towards the right side of the track as soon as you can, because you want to brake just before you go under the Gran Turismo sign. Brake hard for a short moment. Lots of braking control as you go over the sausage curves, and you want to do a lot of throttle control to try to get a fast exit while trying to keep the car nice and stable and take the final turn flat out. But that is all for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the qualifying strategies, which is starting now. Alright, so welcome to the qualifying sessions. This is where we quickly talk about the qualifying session. So you have 5 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time, and the thing that you want to be careful of is your outlap, because the tire wear is really high, so it is really easy to just push it from the moment you get out of the pit stop and shred your tires, which could lead to less grip and lead to worse lap times. So as you start your outlap, just take your time going through the track. You want to obviously warm up your racing soft tires, and then you also want to take care of them, because you want to have the most tire life possible, which means that you'll have the most grip, which means that you can push the car to its limit. So as you see here, I'm just taking my time, nice and easy on the throttle, nice and easy on the brakes and the turning input. Also, as you're about to end your outlap, and when you're about to start your qualifying lap, make sure you nail this final chicane, because if you mess it up, that's going to lead to a messy start for your first lap, and you will end up losing a bit of time. Now, when you're completing your qualifying lap, you want to make sure that you also nail that chicane, because nailing it down, getting it perfectly done, will save you quite a bit of time. And that final chicane can make or break your time. So if there's one area that you want to nail down, it's going to be that final chicane. Now, the weird thing is that the tire wear is a times 10. So as you see right now, I'm completing my first qualifying lap. So there's already a bit of tire wear on the bottom left hand corner of the screen, which means that if I do another qualifying lap, my time will most likely not be as good. So even though you do have time to get 2 qualifying laps done, you really only have 1 lap to get it perfectly done. So that first qualifying lap, you want to make sure that it counts. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is slipstream, should you take advantage of it during your qualifying session. So the thing is that while it does help your car go faster down the main straight and on the back straight, which means that you'll shave off a bit of time, you still have to deal with that dirty air, the slipstream, as you go through the many types of turns at Catalunya. And the tire wear is pretty high, so that means that your tires will wear out a bit faster as you're pushing the car. You also have the final chicane, which means that if the car in front of you messes up, you're probably going to end up running into them, which will slow you down. So towards the lower rated lobbies, you're going to be better off qualifying by yourself. Give yourself plenty of space between yourself and the car in front of you. That way you don't get interrupted by anyone in front of you. And in the higher rated lobbies, you're probably going to see slipstream qualifying being a thing. So at the end of the day, while you have time for 2 qualifying laps, you really only have 1 qualifying lap that needs to be perfect, which is going to be your first qualifying lap because of the high tire wear. So make that qualifying lap count. So usually I would start to talk about the race strategies, but there is something important that I need to bring up, and that's going to be the tire that you want to start on, because where you qualify is going to determine the kind of tire that you want to start on. So in the lobbies, you want to do this thing I'll be doing in a bit, because what you're seeing right now is me in the lobbies. This will also apply to the actual FIA session itself, and there's a bit of something extra for the FIA session. So let's say you got a really good time, press options, exit, and then going over to driving options. So I have it highlighted right here. Press driving options and change the front tires first, then the rear tires second. So as you see right now, I want to do this race and start on the racing medium tires. Now for the actual FIA session, in between the qualifying and the race session, there's a little menu, which is what you're seeing right now. You can do the same thing, press driving options and change the tires, which you just saw just now. There's also the car settings, where you can change the front tires first and the rear tires second, depending on what kind of strategy that you want to run. And I say this because where you end up qualifying is going to determine the kind of strategy that you want to run. So hopefully that made sense, because I think this is something really important that you need to know for this race. Speaking of the race, let's go ahead and take a look at the race. So we are doing 17 laps at Catalunya GP with the Group 3 cars. The fuel is a ×4, which means that fuel will be a problem, and the tire is a ×10, which means that tire wear will also be a problem, which means that you're most likely going to end up pitting at some point. So let's quickly take a look through the strategies. So the first and second strategies, they're the same thing except in different orders. The third strategy is if your tire wear is really bad, and the fourth strategy is for those who can actually pull off the no stop, which requires a crazy amount of fuel and tire saving while making sure that you don't lose pace. And also, where you're starting will determine what kind of strategy you want to run. So if you're starting within the top 5, then you might want to start on the racing soft tires and try to build up that gap from the very start of the race. But if you're starting closer towards the middle or the back of the pack, then you're going to want to start on the racing hard tires, get the slower required tire out of the way, and when you do your pit stop, you switch on over to the softest tire compound that you and your car can handle do the refueling, and especially with a lighter car on your second stint, which will be your racing soft or medium tires, you'll be able to get faster lap times and quickly catch up to those on the racing hard tires. The racing soft, medium, and hard tires are available for this race, but only the racing hard tires are the required tires for this race, so make sure that you use the racing hard tires for at least one lap so you don't get a 1 minute penalty after the race ends. Now in this clip, I'm using the racing soft into the racing hard strategy, so I'm using strategy 1. And here's the thing, you want to make sure that your racing soft tires can last at least 5 to 6 or even more laps. So this is going to require you to do a lot of tire saving, and the main ways to tire save is to adjust your brake balance towards your car's needs, brake a bit earlier, brake a bit easier so you're not at full braking power for too long, being easier on the throttle, especially as you exit out of turns, or even coming out of turns at a higher gear if possible, and by being easier on your turning inputs and driving smoothly. And this is especially important because if you start to drive really hard, you start to thrash the car around, your racing soft tires are not going to last that long. I've heard some people say that they've been able to make their racing soft tires last only 4 laps. In this clip, I'm going to make the racing soft tires last 7 laps. So you want to just nurse those tires, you don't want to push the car too much, and you want to be careful whenever you engage in a battle with someone. You want the battles to be short and sweet, because if you start to push the car too much, you're trying to take someone's position, you're going to end up shredding your tires. And I know I'll eventually be asked about the racing medium tires. I will cover that in a bit, but I do want to quickly say that the racing medium tires are not going to be as viable unless if you cannot make the racing soft stint work and you cannot make your racing soft tires last at least 5 laps. So we're braking early for this turn, braking nice and easy because we don't want to strain out the tires early on, and we just want to be nice and consistent, as that will help us make the tires last a little bit longer and the tire wear will be a bit more predictable. I also did mention the brake balance earlier on, so you can press the left or the right buttons on your D-pad and you'll see the multi-function display on the bottom right hand corner of your screen change on over. One of them is called brake balance, in which then you can press the up or down to adjust your brake balance values. You can also adjust it in the car settings if possible. And in this race, I had the brake balance at +1, so 1 to the rear, because the Dodge Viper, the tire wear is a bit harsher towards the front tires, so I want to ease off that tire wear from the front tires and make the rear tires wear out a bit faster. This is especially important because the Dodge Viper is a bit understeery, so if the front tires wear out faster, then the car is going to be extremely understeery and I'll have to go so slow through these turns that I'll become a sitting duck. So I will be making my rear tires take a bit more of the hit, but that does mean that I will be able to do this wonderful thing called making a turn, especially when you have to go through the chicane, because those front tires, yeah, you want to make sure that they last. And this brake balance value will be different depending on the car that you're in. So while +1 works for me, it may not work for other people and for other cars. So you want to try to run a test race and just try to figure out which tires are wearing out faster for you, so you can try to adjust your brake balance and to make sure that you can make your tire wear a bit more even. Unless if you're me and you're trying to make the front tires last longer. Also, the pit stop, it is hanging out to the right just after the final chicane, so when you're ready to pit, just bring yourself all the way in to the right and you'll enter the pit stop. So your pit loss is going to be 30 seconds, and that is including a tire change and refueling. So right now we're at the end of lap 7. I'm going to switch on over to the racing hard tires and finish the race with them. So I'm doing 7 laps on the soft tires and 10 laps on the hard tires. And before I go on, I do want to note that this little diamond means that if you refuel to where the diamond is, that means that you'll be able to finish that race considering your current driving style. So I'm actually going to suggest that when you refuel, fuel up a little bit past the diamond. That way it's kind of like a little insurance, so that if you do end up pushing a little bit more for some reason, then you'll know that you'll have just enough fuel to be able to finish the race. Now, eventually I'm going to start to talk about the racing medium into hard tire strategy, so I do want to show why the racing soft tire into the racing hard tires, or vice versa, is the better strategy to go with. So if you look on the right side of your screen, you're going to see my lap times, and laps 1 through 7 were my racing soft times, and I was able to maintain a 145 for most of the stint until lap 6, where I ended up having a bit of tire wear kick in and ended up getting a 146. And this is considering that I was tire saving and fuel saving, which once again I'll talk more in a bit. But with the tire saving on the racing soft tires, I was pretty much doing the lap times that I would be doing on the racing medium tires if I was starting to try to push it a bit more. So this is why I'm going to say that the racing medium tires is not the way to go, unless if you cannot make the racing soft tires last at least 5 laps. And we're going to skip on over to the end of the racing hard stint, so the very end of the race. So we were getting 146s and then a 147. I was still doing a bit of tire saving, and the car was a bit lighter because I used up quite a bit of fuel, and the tire wear was also kicking in, so the car is getting a little bit harder to drive. But with this first race, I ended up getting a 30 minutes and 45 seconds. In another run, I did start to push a bit more and ended up getting a 30 minutes and 41 seconds. And in terms of fuel saving, so the amount of fuel saving you do will also partially determine what kind of times that you'll be getting. So yeah, you do want to do some fuel saving, mainly by short shifting, so shifting a little bit earlier, but you want to find that sweet balance between saving a bit of fuel and maintaining a good pace. So you don't want to be shifting super early to the point where your lap times are dropping off of a cliff, but you don't want to push too hard to the point where your tires are getting shredded and you have to spend about an eternity refueling at the pit stop. So for example, right here, I'm going down the main straight and I'm going to rev it out a bit more because this is a high-speed section. So I'm revving it out a bit more, almost going flat out. But I'm still doing a bit of fuel saving by doing a bit of short shifting, so I can once again find that good balance between saving a bit of fuel and being able to maintain a good pace. And to show why you don't want to fuel save too much, I'm going to show 2 clips. So the top part, or the top bar, is where I pushed a bit more, did a bit less fuel saving, and the bottom bar is where I did a bit more fuel saving. So right away you can see that the diamond isn't too far off. So in a bit we're going to see how long it takes to do the refueling. So the more fuel saving one, the bottom one, is going to stop to refuel at 70%, whereas with the top bar I refueled at 80%. So I only ended up saving about 10% of fuel, and the time difference between those two, the refueling that is, was about 2.5 seconds. And while you might think, oh, the 2.5 seconds, that's a lot of time, well, don't forget that the one who's doing the pushing, they're going to be getting faster lap times, so eventually they're going to catch up to the one who did more fuel saving. So that's going to create a bit of an issue for those who do a bit too much of fuel saving. So once again, try to find that good balance between saving a bit of fuel while maintaining a good pace. So for example, in this case, I pushed a bit more in this run and I had to refuel a bit more, but because I was getting faster lap times, that kind of nullified the longer refueling, and I ended up finishing 4 seconds faster than when I was doing a bit more fuel saving. Alright, so now let's finally talk about the racing medium stint. Is it worth running the racing medium into the racing hard tire strategy or vice versa? I'm going to say no, because you're going to put yourself in a bit of a catch-22 situation. So by being on the racing medium tires, if you start to tire save, you're going to basically be getting times similar to that of the racing hard tires. And if you start to push, sure, your times will be a bit faster, but your tires are going to wear out pretty fast. The thing is that the racing medium tires in Gran Turismo Sport, they're usually not that good. I like to say that they have the grips of the racing hard tires while having the duration of a racing soft tire. And usually in this game, the racing medium tires usually don't last much longer than a racing soft tires. So especially in a race where all 3 tire compounds are available to be used, and if there's only one tire requirement, so for example in this case the racing hard tires are required and all 3 tires are available, you usually never want to use the racing medium tires. So right now, the lap times I got with the racing soft tires should be popping up next to my times with the racing medium tires. So my racing soft tires were in the 144s and the 145s, and this was with me doing a lot of tire saving. So I was basically getting lap times compared or similar to the racing medium tires while having the tire grip of the racing soft tires. And in this case, the racing medium tires are not going to last much longer for me. So with the racing soft stints that I did, the racing soft tires lasted me 7 laps. With the racing medium tires, they lasted me 8 laps. So in my case, the racing medium tires are definitely not worth it. The only time where the racing medium tires will be useful is if your tire wear is just crazy bad. Let's say you're in a car that has really bad tire wear, like the Renault RS01. If you cannot tire save, if you cannot make the racing soft tires last at least 5 laps, then the racing medium tires is going to be the tire that you will want to use. Think of the racing medium into hard tires as more of a last resort. So we'll skip on over towards the end of the race. So this was still where I did the racing medium into hard tires. United States, the player, not the country, he ended up passing me, and he did the racing hards into the racing soft stints. So I basically was no competition to him, and he ended up passing me without much of an issue. And in this race, I finished with a total time of 30 minutes and 45 seconds, 4 seconds slower than my best race with the racing soft into the racing hard tires. And the last strategy that I want to quickly touch on is the no stop. So this is where you do all 17 laps on the racing hard tires, and this one is really difficult to do because you have to do a lot of tire and fuel saving. So you need to do a lot of short shifting, and this is the strategy where you want to adjust the fuel mapping. And once again, you still want to do a lot of tire saving because you need to make those racing hard tires last all 17 laps. And you're going to see one of the problems with doing the no stop is that you're quickly going to become a sitting duck. So the person in first place is the one doing the no stop, and first place who's doing the no stop is on the racing hard tires. I'm on the racing hard tires, and third place is on the racing hard tires as well. So we're basically getting held up by the one in first place, and we're going to quickly catch on that something is up, in which that's where I found out that he's going for the no stop. So that's one of the issues with doing the no stop, is that, well, I mean, in a way it's good because you're holding people up, but you also become a pretty big target, so everyone's going to try to pass you once they find out that you're trying to no stop the race. And you also need to try to somehow do all this tire and fuel saving while maintaining a good pace. And that is something that is really hard to do. And I think the quote-unquote easiest car to pull off the no stop with is the Mazda RX Vision, because that car has amazing tire and fuel saving capabilities. But once again, it is really hard to do, and it is really easy to screw it up, because if you start to slow down too much, then you become a target and you're not going to regain any positions back. If you start to push too much, then you're going to end up having very worn tires, or worse yet, run out of fuel at the very end of the race. So this no stop strategy, it's a very high risk strategy, but it is possible to pull it off. But it's going to be very hard to do, more like way too hard to do, unless if you're able to 600% be confident that you can actually pull it off and still manage to finish ahead of everyone. So at the end of the day, you're going to be much better off doing the one stop. Make sure you use the racing hard tires, do a bit of fuel saving while maintaining a good pace, do a lot of tire saving, and try to be on the racing soft tires and make them last at least 5 laps. If you do the testing and you do a lot of practice and you still can't make the racing soft tires last at least 5 laps, then that's when you can go ahead and use the racing medium tires. But let's go ahead and show places to overtake and the penalty serving zone. So let's go ahead and start on the main straight. This is the best place to get the overtake done, especially with the help of slipstream. And after this main straight, you're more or less going to want to be in a single file line, because if you start to go too wide or start to battle out through some of these turns, then you risk losing a lot of time, and especially for a race like this, you risk shredding your tires. This turn can also be a potential place to get overtake done depending on the situation that you're in, but know that overtakes can happen there and for this turn as well. This turn is a bit more situational, so if the car got a really bad exit out of the previous turn, then you can go for an overtake there. This turn, I would suggest not going for the overtake. I would suggest wait it out until you reach the back straight, and of course there are exceptions to that depending on the situation that you're in. This back straight is pretty much the last and other best place to get the overtake done, because after you go through this turn, it'll be all a single file line all the way until the very end of the lap. So yeah, so this part is very handling focused, so it's going to be very difficult to try to get an overtake done unless the car in front of you really messes up. And if you didn't spot the penalty serving zone, it's hanging out in the middle of the back straight right over here. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this guide. Hopefully it helps you determine what kind of strategy that you want to run, and hopefully it gets you some good results. But that's all from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can press a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And there is a membership program that you can also sign up with, which is in the description down below, or that little sponsor join button thing below the video. But anyways, that's all from me. I'm going to sign off now. So this is Mr. CA wishing you all a good race, and I'll see you all in the next video.